Welcome to this episode of the Million Dollar Mastermind. I'm Larry Weidel, and before we get started, if you want to know exactly how to win again and again, go to weidelonwinning.com/webinar now to watch something I've put together for you. Now let's get going into this episode of Million Dollar Mastermind. I'm talking with AJ Jackson. He's a musician and band leader of the band Saint Motel. Is that a good way of saying it?
That's the best way of saying it.
Okay. He's a filmmaker, songwriter, record producer, and he's also 2 platinum records, 1 gold, and also created his own different kind of eyewear. And it's called A-View, and you can see them at aview.com. And so talk about, I'm curious about, one thing I wanted us to hit on was, as a performer, you're delivering, you're singing your song, but you're really delivering an exciting experience to the crowd. Would you, is that a good way of saying it? And if, you're bringing some light and excitement and something new and special into their life. So it's a big deal. Like for you, you're playing the same song again, but you can't treat it like just another thing. You got to realize what you're doing is a special event for your fans to see you live and all of that stuff. And that really, you got to bring some excitement to the project. That's one thing I admired about Tom Petty. He never took a night off. Every performance he felt had to be right up to the max. And because I think your people can tell, but do you, what do you do to keep yourself up? Have you been in it so long that it's just routine? Does it get routine?
Does it get routine? There's certainly aspects that do, but I think if it's Tom Petty or any great live musician, they're not really putting on a performance so much as it's really fun to be playing music. And when it goes right, you get lost in it. And that's what I mean by routine. Is sometimes the song so well you're not even realizing you're playing it, and your mind is able to float somewhere else. Everything. When it's routine, I think is when actually it's the best, when you're that tight as a band where you can, you notice the improvisations in it. You notice certain things that some of the band did. You notice, some way the crowd reacted, like I see something out of the corner of my eye. Oh, I got to go jump and climb that, it's the routine is good in an aspect of it lets you be in the moment. You don't have to be like, oh shit, what was the next chord again? Oh shit, what was this? So in that aspect, I think it's a good thing. I can see on the flip side where it's not so much routine, but if you're not enjoying it, it comes through. And I think most of the time it's probably not someone not enjoying playing live, but if you're sick or you're injured or something's going on that takes you out of it, people can tell. They can tell if you're, because you're tapping into some sort of larger than any of us connection at a good concert. It almost feels like a religious experience, and since it is kind of a collective mind experience, if someone who's kind of leading that isn't there, you can tell. You're on the same wavelength. But yeah, absolutely. I think
I'm sure on the way up it's easy to keep the excitement because you're doing things for the first time. Talk about walking yourself through what it was like to be inside your mind and walk through those first stages where you're in the van. Even that was new when you got started. You're going these distances and getting received at new places, out of town, out of state, possibly. You talked about walk us through those breakthroughs, the first time you heard yourself on the radio, the first time, you played, talk us through those stages.
Yeah. it is a good point where the kind of new experience always kind of makes it feel a bit more special. Like the first time you play in a city, the first time you play on that size stage, the first time you play with your favorite band, first time you hear people singing along the lyrics, like all these kind of things absolutely are like turbo boost on a performance. But I don't think it it means that the second time won't be there. It's
No.
just those first times are ones that kind of really stay with you. So you know in
So
our
was your
experience,
first tour? You got signed. Did you do a tour in the U.S.? What's your history there? Uh, what was the
sure.
first tour they set you up on? And
Well,
walk us
well,
through
we were
the.
we were we were a band for years before we were signed, and we played every like dive bar in this country. So
What does that mean? Every dive bar in this country. I mean, you would go set up shop in a certain state for a while, move to another region, or
yeah, I
was it
mean, we would
crisscross back and
tour,
forth?
we would tour and take any opportunity to play in front of people, and we would crash on couches and get paid like in beer, and it was about getting out there as much as we could in the only way we knew how. So um, yeah, we had quite a bit of touring experience before we were signed. We had a couple albums out before we were signed. Um, but yeah, I mean, we by bar, I mean we've played in the back of semi trucks. We play on rooftops. We play people's house parties. Sometimes we play at their house party after the show. Like it was uh just nonstop. I mean, that's just kind of the way we started out. As much as we could, we were playing music.
And your mentality at that time, there was no management. It was just you guys. Is that right?
That's right. Yep.
And you're going wherever the door will open. It sounds like.
I should say it, but somewhere in that period we did have a manager.
Uh-huh.
Who was like an independent guy. But yeah, we're just going wherever the wind's blowing, and if you get an opportunity, like you will take it. That,
What
that,
does it mean that you got signed? And how exciting was that? How was that a changer? Because you hear bands all the time. Hey, they got signed. They went out to LA, recorded an album, and that's the end of them.
yeah, yeah. Like Tom Petty's a good example, right? Like
Yeah, right.
the band was signed and then fell apart.
Yeah, yeah.
So we were signed out of the UK, and I think that was probably the most exciting part, was that we were in a new world. Um, and it was also interesting
So who
that
signed you?
that's
Who signed you?
Parlophone.
Okay.
Yeah, so I mean, they signed the Beatles, so it was kind of
Yeah.
like this is the coolest thing to ever happen. It wasn't like you're signed and then record an album, because we already had the music recorded. They just wanted to have it, put it out. So for us, it meant going to Europe, being there for basically like a year, a little longer, building it, and that allowed us to come back to the United States kind of like a new thing, because we were playing every dive bar here in the United States, like I was saying, but we all the labels knew us. We were just kind of that band that was there doing that thing, and it took kind of uh that you know we were exotic maybe in England as that Californian band, but not in California. And when we came back here, then people all of a sudden viewed us as like, hey, that Italian band, or that band that had success in the UK. And then it kind of made the story a little bit different. But it was an interesting journey. And then we came back to the US, almost like people, so people know us in different eras. Like some people think we just started with the My Type EP. Some people know us back all the way to Foreplay and Voyeur, and some people think this album we just put out was the first thing we ever put out, and A Good Song Never Dies is the first Saint Motel song they've ever heard, or something like that. So I mean, it's been an interesting journey.
Hey, listen, there's a lot of information online, but there aren't a lot of people who've actually done something. In my case, I've actually built a successful business that's accrued over $5 billion in assets under management and has done well even during trying times. Now, if you want to know exactly how I've done this, go to whitelmwinning.com/webinar now. I've compressed a decade of learning into 5 short weeks just for those of you who want to give yourself an incredible advantage and are tired of waiting and watching others move up.
And how did you get into the UK and get signed to the UK when you were a dive band, dive band in the US, a dive bar band in the US? How do you wind up getting signed by a UK label? Were they over here looking for bands to sign, or how did that happen?
Well, when I say we played every dive bar and every semi truck, that's true. But over the course of years, we managed to build up a following. We were playing, bigger venues, clubs, maybe even an occasional theater. After building it for so many years, so we weren't necessarily in dive bars at that point. We had some success. We had some songs and movies. Some people like KCRW would be playing our music on the radio, and some college stations and stuff like that. So we were like a very indie band, and the way it kind of happened in Europe was the funniest, kind of most literal thing. One of the tastemakers at the BBC tweeted, "This song's a hit," one of our songs. And then all of a sudden, all these labels reached out to us. But we reached out to so many labels ahead of that with the same songs that later on would be like gold records.
If you had known that, you could have paid that guy for that tweet 5 years early.
Yeah, right. Like, hey, but I mean, it's the journey is what it is.
Yeah.
It's interesting how it happened. If anything, it kind of was like validating in a certain way, even though it was like a small label deal, and we were in UK, and we were still very much a baby band. It just kind of felt like someone believes in it in the industry. Like, it was always like we had fans that believed in it, and we had people that would like want us to play their parties or their festivals or whatever, but the industry was very hyper focused on the current trend. And for us, that was never it. Like, when it was like electro was really big, or like kind of mellow harmony bands were really big. And it's like really in LA, at least, it was hyper focused on that. And I feel like we never fit that mold. And I think we still don't fit that mold. I still think that will probably be our greatest asset, is that I don't even know how to write for a trend. I make music the same way I've made music since I was 5 years old. It's always solving that mystery and making things that gravitate towards me.
Would you say it's the fact that you worked your way up step by step? There's an experience from every gig, and every experience changes you somewhat, toughens you somewhat, teaches you something somewhat. And would you say that you could say it like this: because you worked your way up from the bottom, you were ready to go into the bigger time type thing when the door opened, when you got signed, and you were ready to take that tour in Europe? Is that a good way of saying it? That's the advantage of working your way up, even though it took forever.
Yeah, I think that's a good way of saying it. I think being kind of starting in the mailroom of the music industry ended up being a great thing, because by the time we started having some success, we were a pretty tight band, and we were able to kind of translate that to live settings. As we would play hard. We would play like intense. It was rock and roll. We weren't trying to scramble to figure out how to play these songs live after it became a radio hit. Like, we were already a very close-knit band, and also it made us so thankful for every step of the way that happened. we already got all our stupid petty squabbles over gas money or whatever out of the way. Like we're not fighting about girls or something stupid like that breaks up so many bands. Like at this point, we're like, holy shit, like we have an opportunity to be able to do this and get paid for it now. Like,
Yeah.
so it did help. I say
Like
that,
really get paid,
yeah.
And that's
I
what
mean,
a lot of bands can't. A lot of bands just cannot handle success because they haven't had that your germination period where they grow up and the rough edges get knocked off and sanded down to where because success has lots of moving parts. When you've got a successful band, you got a successful business, you're a successful performer, lots of moving parts, lots of people, a lot of interaction, a lot of moving around the country and moving around the globe. And so lots of opportunities to snag, have things happen, bump into people, and all of a sudden blow-ups occur and shutdowns occur, which kill your momentum, and whatever you want to keep that momentum going, you don't want to be, the thing is, you learn how to not be your own worst enemy when things start working right, when you've knocked those edges off. And so talk about, when, as that went, you guys were ready and things that, because I'm sure you had things go wrong on these tours. You got the big contract, you got the nice deal, you got the bigger venue, you're going to be paid. And then still infuriating crap happens. Things are lost, things are, people don't, the venue's not set up right, they're not equipped right, or, and I'm sure you had a lot of those kind of blow-ups that you guys had probably been through so many times, it just like rolls off your back. Does that sound familiar?
Yeah, but also, as it scales up, there's more moving parts. There's it's things don't necessarily get easier at all.
Right.
You all of a sudden have more people involved. You have more things that can break down, and you have all
Just
sorts
the
of
lighting, just the rigging and the lighting,
yeah,
crap
yeah.
like that. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, in some ways, just being a simple 4-piece rock band playing that dive bar is a much simpler existence. um, but yeah, I mean, it's always steps. I feel like just steps moving in the right direction. And there's never been, for us at least, or for me at least, this period of like, oh, thank God we did it. It's always like we have a lot more to do.
Anything you'd like to do as a final word? I want to thank you for your time. You've been real generous with your time and real open about everything. And want to wish you the best. I'm proud of you and impressed by not only what you've done, but who you obviously are as a person. And look forward to seeing you have a lot of continued success. Anything, AJ, you'd like to pass along to people who are coming up their ladder and you'd like to say something that from AJ to those people?
I mean, I guess just going off the theme of your podcast and the winning, it doesn't mean anyone has to lose. And when you come up and win together, like for my situation, having kind of a band to enjoy it with, it can make it really special. And I think, another aspect of is you have the mentality of you've never won. Is a good place to be, because it's always a work in progress.
Fantastic. Thanks so much, AJ. Wish you the best. And again, can't thank you enough for taking the time and your thoughtful answers. And I'm looking forward to see Aview explode. Where are you now today?
So we're online, just direct to customer. You can get the glasses and the different colored lenses at aview.com.
And where are you headquartered? I mean, where are you living right now?
Oh, in Texas. So Aview is based in Austin, Texas.
Oh, Austin. Austin guy. Got some blues coming into the scene here. Okay. So
Yeehaw.
yeehaw. Well, wish you the best and thanks so much.
Yeah,
Look,
thank you for having me.
yeah, and hopefully we'll check in down the road and a few months down the road and talk about your new adventures and new things you've learned. And we'll talk about the success of AView. All
Yeah,
right.
that'd be great. All right, well,
All
thank you
right.
very much.
If you enjoyed what you've heard and are dead serious about finding out for yourself exactly how this works in the real world, I've taken the most valuable business lessons I've learned over 40 years and put them into something for you to watch. Go to whiteelementwinning.com/webinar now in order to move up as fast as possible. I'm Larry Weidel, and I run the $1 Million Mastermind. Go, go, go.